Okay. Come on under it. If anyone wants to stand under mine, please feel free. I'll try to cover as many of you as possible. Come on up. You can stand next to me.
Come on, Patty. Okay. It's like I can hold it a little higher.
Or actually, can I ask you to hold that? That would be awesome. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. Shortly, you will hear directly from people who have been wronged and had their rights violated by Kristi Noem's Department of Homeland Security. Today, in the House Judiciary Committee, I questioned Secretary Noem. I gave her an opportunity to answer for her agents' lawlessness and the trauma that her personnel have inflicted on immigrants and citizens alike. Instead, what we heard from her were excuses, deflections, and flat-out lies. She refused to accept responsibility for the actions of ICE and CBP, for the arrests of U.S. citizens, for the deaths of 40 immigrants in ICE custody, for the kidnapping and the disappearances of children like Liam Ramos, and for the killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good in the streets of Minnesota. It is a terrible shame that she could not do any of that. It's sadly unsurprising from an administration that would work so hard to turn us against our neighbors so that we don't notice that billionaires are stealing from us, that predators are running governmental agencies, that costs are rising and Trump is doing nothing to stop it. Tomorrow, the House of Representatives will vote on the DHS appropriations bill, a push by Republican leadership that aims to end the current DHS shutdown. Kristi Noem's display today only further cemented my belief that she needs to resign, be fired, or be impeached. DHS, ICE, and CBP need to be dismantled. There is no reason for them to operate in this way with zero accountability and no way to ensure that they actually protect our residents rather than terrorize them. That is why I have refused to give another cent to these agencies without significant reforms. Republicans already gave them a $170 billion slush fund that ICE is using to invest in for-profit prisons, in massive warehouses that take in money for those prison operators and incarcerate tens of thousands of people every single night without any due process and in violation of hundreds of court orders. We need to end the kidnapping, incarceration, and yes, the murder of our residents. ICE and CBP need to get out of our cities and stop these surges. They should have judicial warrants for arrests so they can't just pick people up on the streets, including the U.S. citizens that you will hear from today, in violation of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. There needs to be real accountability for the people that they've murdered. They need to stop terrorizing our communities and our neighborhoods. Noem and DHS are not serious to come to the table and take accountability for the wreckage that DHS has caused, much less to make any of these necessary changes. The only light in all of this darkness is the courage, the compassion, the bravery of the people who have stood up, who have recorded ICE and CBP abuses, and let the entire world see the lawlessness of DHS juxtaposed against the courage of ordinary people. So let me pass it over to one of those people who understands the horrors firsthand and has courageously used her voice to showcase ICE and CBP's outrages, Patricia O'Keefe.
Thank you, Congresswoman Jayapal. My name is Patty O'Keefe. On January 11th, I was violently arrested and detained while legally observing ICE in my neighborhood and was released 9 hours later with no charges. What happened to me was a flagrant violation of my constitutional rights. It was frightening, it was traumatic, and to this day, inexplicable. The ICE agents escalated quickly and without provocation. After briefly warning us to stop observing them, and as they were walking back to their car, one of the agents gave a little shrug as if to say, hey, why not? Came back and sprayed pepper spray directly into the intake vent of my car. The fan was on in my car, so the gas got in immediately. We started coughing. It was burning our throats, our eyes, our mouths. It was absolutely an excessive use of force. Then, without asking us to roll down our windows or even get out of the car, they smashed them in. They said that we were obstructing even though there was no one in front of them. They were not boxed in. We were not at an active ICE raid. And once they smashed those windows in, I was just frozen. My hands were up. The car was in park. I was doing everything that I possibly could to signal to them that I was not a threat. But in the back of my head, I was like, does that even matter anymore? This was just days after Renee Good was shot dead in the street by an ICE agent. I was then taken and detained for over 8 hours. We were never charged with anything or given an explanation for why we were there. When we got to the detention center, we were put in ankle shackles and led to a specific hallway with designated cells for U.S. citizens. I was not offered a phone call. I asked repeatedly. I had to beg to use the bathroom. The treatment there was dehumanizing and it felt arbitrary. And the way that I was treated personally by ICE agents was reprehensible. They took photos of me on their personal phones, made fun of my appearance. One agent made a degrading and threatening comment meant to humiliate and intimidate me, and that comment has stayed with me since. I want to speak to the psychological impact of this experience. As a result of this, I have developed severe anxiety and nightmares. I can count on one hand the amount of nights I have not dreamt about ICE chasing me down. I feel violated, objectified. I've had to seek medical help to adjust my medication. I've had to seek psychological help to try and process what happened to me. This has changed me to my core, and I think a lot of people who experience this would say the same thing. I'm not the same person as I was before this happened. And, you know, the car repairs, the physical damage, you know, it's expensive, but we can repair that. The emotional damage, the emotional trauma and toll that this has taken, that's a lot more difficult. I don't know when that's going to get better. And we've just been left to deal with the fallout, pick up the pieces. And how do we do that? I don't even know. So to Secretary Noem, your Department of Homeland Security released a statement about my arrest that was riddled with lies, least of which saying that the ICE agents used a minimal level of force when arresting and detaining me. I need the people to know that you may try to discredit me by lying about what truly happened, but we are not going to let you rewrite history. I am sharing my experience today to ensure that Americans do not have to go through a similar experience. Our government should not be able to hurt people and illegally detain people. It should be protecting and serving the people. So no one should endure this treatment while lawfully observing. The fear and trauma and ongoing anxiety this has caused must be acknowledged. Psychological, emotional, and constitutional harms must be addressed. We need accountability, and we will not rest until we get it. Thank you.
It was so incredibly powerful, Patty, and I'm so sorry for what you and everyone else that is speaking today has gone through. It's now my honor to introduce Wesley Powers.
Hi, thank you, Congresswoman Jayapal. My name is Wesley Powers, and I'm a resident of the Twin Cities in Minnesota. I am also a Navy veteran, enlisted before 9/11 and serving both in Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. In January, while exercising my right to protest at the Whipple Detention Center, I was shot at close range by a chemical agent being covered in the substance. I was then detained by ICE while attempting to get the name and emergency contact number of another individual who multiple ICE agents had pinned down. Agents then pinned me down, knelt on my head, put me in handcuffs, and detained me at the Whipple detention facility. I was held in a cell directly across from overcrowded cells containing immigrants. The cell I was being held in was also overcrowded, as admitted by the agents in the facility. I was forced to sit in an overcrowded cell with active chemical irritant for 9 hours. While detained, agents took my photo with what appeared to be a personal cell phone. I noted them also taking photos of the IDs of other citizens detained. While being interrogated and while speaking with my lawyers, I was not afforded privacy, with doors being propped open with water bottles and an agent standing outside listening. I was ultimately released without charges. I was also never asked about my citizenship status, not once. I live near the Whipple building. I can see it from my dining room window. I've seen unknown vehicles parked outside my house for almost a month. For almost a month, I couldn't even sleep in my own bed. I've missed work and have lost enough income to force me to seek rental assistance. And I've been told by my care teams at the VA they cannot guarantee my medical records are safe from HIPAA violations by this administration. Today, I struggle to leave my home. I feel frozen, scared, and angry. But please understand, this is not just my story. For each story told by those brave enough to share, there are several other stories not being told due to fear of retaliation, be that from the general public or this administration. I am incredibly humbled to have the privilege to stand here next to these brave people representing the Twin Cities and Minnesota, and to speak where others who are too scared to even look out their shuttered windows. Because this is still happening to us, and these stories still need to be heard, and if others are too terrorized to speak, we will. Kristi Noem should take this opportunity to self-deport Kristi Noem should take this opportunity to self-deport from her position and the abhorrent administration. She has brutalized our communities and is a domestic terrorist. We demand action now. Thank you.
Incredibly powerful. Thank you so much, Wesley. Now let me invite someone to the podium that can also talk about what this means in the context of history. Haida Ericson.
Thank you, Congresswoman. My name is Haida Ericson, and I was raised in Germany, but lived most of my adult life in Minnesota. Germany confronts the history of fascism directly, and when you go to school in Germany, you learn what it means, and you just start to wonder how could people do what they do. And that was a question also for me. What would I have done if I would have been an adult during fascism? Unfortunately, as a U.S. citizen today, I have to ask myself again, what will I do as a U.S. citizen to what I see happening here in this country? And I think all of us need to ask this question, particularly in the context of DHS funding being discussed when there are no clear guardrails, when they are not protecting U.S. citizens, and when our constitutional rights are being violated. I have been part of a group at Unidos that train U.S. citizens in the Twin Cities and in the broader metro area to be constitutional observers. I got to this place because after the election, I really saw that people were being othered, meaning groups were being described very, very differently and set aside. You see this particularly with immigrants. As a U.S. citizen, I have seen, and as a lawful observer, I have seen people being detained that did nothing, that were released and without being charged, as you just heard, and given no explanation in terms of why they were detained. For me, it is just absolutely essential that I have to speak up about this. I recall one of the stories that are being told when you're going to school is when Buchenwald, a concentration camp in Germany, was being liberated, and a U.S. general ordered the neighboring mayor to come to Buchenwald to see what is actually happening there. The mayor, after that visit, said, "We knew, but we didn't know, but we knew." And I think this is exactly happening today. We know enough what is happening. We see children being detained. We see citizens being arrested. We see detainees dying. And we see our constitutional rights being violated. This is not business as usual here in the United States. Expanding DHS funding without guardrails is dangerous. And I have called my elected officials and really expressed to them that I do not support funding DHS without accountability and clear protection, that they need to protect our constitutional rights, to set guardrails, and to protect the dignity and safety of all, and particularly our constitutional rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Haida. That is incredibly important information. Now it's my honor to introduce another brave U.S. citizen who is sharing his story, Ed Higgins. I'll hold it for you.
Appreciate you. My name is Ed Higgins. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran and a proud citizen of Columbia Heights, Minnesota. I come from a family that believes in systems, accountability, and constitutional order. I understand how government is supposed to function, and what I experienced on February 5th was not that. I encountered federal agents driving aggressively through Columbia Heights and Hilltop. A vehicle incident escalated into a high-speed pursuit in which I called 911 fearing for my life. I drove to a local police station seeking safety. Instead, I was boxed in. Agents exited the vehicle with firearms drawn and guns pointed at my face. Conflicting commands were shouted and an agent was kicking my door. Agents attempted to break my driver's side window with their firearms, and when that didn't work, they went to get a hammer. In that moment, I believed I might not survive. It was in that moment that Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension intervened and the BCA Investigative Division Manager Scott Mueller de-escalated the whole situation. His presence prevented what felt like a powder keg from igniting. Without that intervention, I believe the outcome would have been tragic. What I observed felt disorganized and unstable with chaotic intake procedures at the Whipple building. Equipment malfunctioning, sensitive materials unsecured, confusion around protocol. While some career agents acted professionally, the overall operation felt improvised and not disciplined. My bigger concerns are the reckless driving through residential neighborhoods, firearms drawn, and what should have been a minor infraction. Escalations that appeared personal rather than professional. I was almost killed for what an agent described as making fun of her in a Facebook post. Erosion of trust between federal and state authorities and residents placed in unnecessary danger. Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman.
Thank you so much, Ed. We are incredibly fortunate also to have on the ground organizations and leaders who are stepping up with unprecedented courage and helping to provide assistance for people who are directly impacted, even as they themselves face so many threats. And so please welcome now one of those leaders, Emilia Gonzalez-Avalos.
Thank you, Congresswoman. My name is Emilia Gonzalez-Avalos. I'm the Executive Director of Unidos Minnesota, and I'll keep it short. We heard from Minnesotans that their constitutional rights were eroded, that they were taken against their will, kidnapped without due process. We heard from Minnesotans that their what we believe was the best place to raise a family was disrupted by what we hear are national security efforts to keep the peace and go for the worst of the worst. Hear from our experience in Minnesota. That is not what the Homeland Security Administration is doing in our states. Operation Metro Search disrupted our dynamics of peace, disrupted our family routines, disrupted our economies, disrupted our peace, and we are not recuperating yet. This is going to take years of economic reinvestments, of restabilization of housing, of social-emotional work with the families, immigrants and not immigrants, citizens alike who were impacted. And so what we are here to say is that please, Americans, do not take the bait, do not be distracted. They are working on getting more money to bring these to a site near you, to a hometown near you. And as Americans, we have the power and responsibility to make sure people understand that this is not the America, the constitutional Americans that our generations have fought for. We have an opportunity to do something today instead of reading this through history books as an inevitable thing that happened to us. We cannot let this happen to us. We have our rights still. We have each other. Minnesotans showed you that we have our neighbors, maybe the people that you haven't met yet. These are the neighbors that will show up and stand in solidarity with you in a nonviolent, peaceful demonstration. So that's all I'm here to say. We're very grateful for all the testimonies. We're grateful for the champions that we have in Congress and the Senate. We're very grateful for the institutional democracy that is still protecting some of our rights, but we cannot take that for granted. Democracy is fragile. It's a project that we have to caretake and protect every single day. And today is the best day for every single person to begin protecting that. Thank you so much for having us. And remember, no more money for ICE. We want an investigation with cooperation with the Minnesota Board of Apprehensions on the murder of Renee Good and Alex Pretty. We also want all forces of ICE outside of our communities and away from our corridors. And we also want a comprehensive plan on how we can protect the integrity of mixed status families who have contributed incredible amounts to this country, especially those that benefit the food sector and corporations like Target. Target can do better. They can hit their Fourth Amendment right. They benefit the most from farm workers and grocery workers that put food on the shelves of everyday Americans everywhere across the country. Thank you so much for having us.
So incredibly well said, Amelia, and thank you so much to Unidos for all of your work and all of the organizations that are doing this work on the ground and all of the people of Minnesota. We have a few minutes for question and answer. Yes.
Congresswoman, are Democrats committed to allowing DHS funding to lapse?
Yes, I think what you've seen is a very unified vote in the House from Democrats and from the Senate. And I am pushing every single day as the ranking member of the Immigration Subcommittee for people to understand DHS, unfortunately, has way too much money already. They do not need 1 cent more. And we must have real guardrails and accountability. And so we are committed to not funding DHS, to not funding ICE and CBP. And we're going to hold to that. And I think, listen, there are all kinds of things that the administration is trying to do to distract us from this. But I hope that every single American who is out there watching this press conference sees yourself in the stories of Patty and Ed and Wes and Haida and hears the cries from people like Amelia to protect all of our residents across the United States. These are not isolated incidents. There are 170 U.S. citizens alone who have been detained, according to ProPublica's reporting. And every single night, there are 70,000 people who are locked up in for-profit incarceration facilities who have not had any due process and are being held there despite having lived in this country, despite following the law, 75% of whom have never even committed a crime. So this is a critical issue for every single person across the country.
Congresswoman, do you think in the hearing, Kristi Noem did not apologize for the death of Renee Good or Alex Pretty? Do you think she should apologize?
Yes. I absolutely think she should apologize. I think that she was not even willing to do what Todd Lyons did in saying that they should not have been called domestic terrorists. You know, they didn't even want an investigation. We had to push and push and push. And finally, we got that investigation. But she was ready to condemn Renee Good and Alex Pretty within hours of the murders of those two and take no responsibility. And once again, she was not willing to do that today, and I think the ranking member very clearly showed that she was not willing to do that. She had nothing to say to these U.S. citizens who are standing here who had their rights violated. She kind of mumbled her way through what the Fourth Amendment was, and, you know, I had to remind her that it's not the right to illegally search and seize. It is the protection against illegal search and seizure of residents of the United States. So she needs to go. I don't think she's going to apologize, unfortunately, but I've stopped expecting that.
Do any of the victims feel like you want Kristi Noem to apologize personally?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. She was asked to apologize, and she declined and did not even look us in the eyes. She's been denying that they are detaining American citizens, and it's like, hello, we are right here. We are right here, standing right in front of you, and you can't even give us the decency of looking us in the eye or giving us an apology for the horrific experiences that we've been through. It was absolutely just unconscionable.
Yeah, please.
She also needs to apologize to the 4,000 citizens that were taken with no criminal record. There's only 30 people in Minnesota that have been taken with a criminal record. That is abhorrent. We need our neighbors home. We need our neighborhoods made whole again. And that would start with her apology. It would end with her resignation.
Yes. Anyone else?
I think the Democrats' demand to require ICE agents to wear body cameras, if enacted, would actually stop misconduct by those agents?
No, I don't think it would stop it, because this is a culture problem. This goes deep into what DHS thinks that they have the right to do, and that includes violating people's rights. So would body cameras help? Maybe, but not without somebody who is really demanding accountability and holding people accountable when they violate the law. And I just think that DHS has become a completely lawless agency. ICE, CBP, they operate as if somehow they're turning people against their own government, and that, honestly, there's so many tolls to all of this. You've heard some of the personal tolls, you've heard the financial tolls. There's a real toll to when residents see the government attacking them instead of protecting them, and that's going to have effects for a long time. All right, everybody, we have to wrap up. Thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you for holding the umbrella, too.
I got you. After that workout last night, I heard.